Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Miriam, I've been under the weather, so bear with me. My name is Nick Chavez from the immigration law firm of Chavez and Valko, your key to immigration solutions. And really quickly, before we begin on this topic, don't forget to press like and subscribe if you like our information, if you like receiving our videos, our tips, our memes, our posts, or you just want to get future updates, don't forget to subscribe. And with that, today we will be talking about this new anti-immigration law in Florida that I'm sure everyone has heard about, and it's supposed to take effect on July 1st. So it's assuming it's not blocked in federal court. But more importantly, how does this new law affect your status as an immigrant? And we've received many calls and questions from our clients about how is this new law going to affect your status, with your travel plans, which is the reason why we did this show, right? But many of them have DACA and are worried about traveling to Florida. Many of them have already told me they made plans already to visit Orlando, and they have, they wanted to see Mickey Mouse at Disney World, go to the beaches, everything, all those attractions that Florida has to offer, and there are many. So let's begin. And with me today is our attorney, Miriam Garza-Lee, who practices out of our Fort Worth office. Hello, Miriam. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. Not excited about what's happening, but excited to be here today to talk about this topic for everybody. It has been very sad, like you're mentioning, to hear from all our clients that are wanting to cancel their vacations, and they were excited to take their family to Disney and to the beaches, like you mentioned. So hopefully the information we provide today can give them a little bit more insight as to how to plan around their decision making for what's happening in Florida. But also remember, it's sad that they have to cancel their plans, but we have a lot of fun things that they can do around here in Texas that doesn't necessarily involve having to get too close to the border or to Florida.
You can't compare though Disney World with Six Flags. I mean,
But we're Texas.
Yeah, we're Texas. And a lot of our clients, they've already made plans. And one thing I just want to get it out there: it's this law hasn't taken effect. It won't take effect until July 1st. We know that, but there are some things that could happen, right? We've seen it before in other states where they try to pass similar anti-immigration laws, and the courts get involved, right? They start. I mean, we could see it get blocked, and it might not take effect. That certainly is a possibility, and so it's something that we need to monitor. The law, as it is written, it's new and it's controversial, and with just about any other law, it's as it develops, as the case law develops, new issues come about, and that's what we have to be monitoring. So, really keep an eye out for any developments, and let's see what happens. But as I mentioned, this has happened before in Arizona, right? And we've seen this recently in Texas. It's often used by political gain. And I don't want to get into politics, but the reality is it's very woven in, and the latest law in Florida is no exception. We know that Governor DeSantis, using the topic to get himself on the national stage, and he's going to make a announcement supposedly today or this week, I don't know, and run against Trump for president next year. So naturally he's aiming for those votes, and though there are some variances between the states that we've seen have used these anti-immigration laws, one thing is in common. I mean, they are designed to make it more difficult and discourage immigrants from residing in that state. So that's the whole bottom line there, right? So we'll talk about this new Florida law and what that means for your travel plans if you are worried about your immigration status. And with that, Miriam, can you tell us a little bit about some of the highlights of this new law? What are some of the more significant points that our clients should worry about?
Of course, yeah. So, like you said, assuming it's not blocked, some of the points are that it makes a felony. It makes it a felony offense for individuals to transport someone to Florida who they know or should reasonably know that that person is undocumented and crossed unlawfully into the United States. So it puts that person to the burden of essentially deputizing them to ask these complex immigration questions about how the person entered the United States when transporting them into Florida. Another point is it requires businesses with 25 plus employees to use the federal E-Verify system.
Mm-hmm.
And employees' documents and work eligibility in the United States. It invalidates out-of-state identification cards that were issued without having to prove lawful presence in the United States. So there are some states that allow people without lawful status to obtain driver's licenses or IDs, and it invalidates those documents in the state of Florida. It also prohibits DACA recipients and other immigrants from obtaining a license to practice law. So there's a lot of dreamers with, the dream of obtaining their license to practice. And unfortunately, this law puts a ding on that if it does go through. It requires hospitals that accept Medicaid to request and report the immigration status of the patient. So it's risking people in need of medical assistance. It's causing them to be fearful of even hospitals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And all those provisions, they sound all bad. And the one that really is the most problematic for our clients is the transportation one, right? The transportation that if you're transporting someone into Florida who does not have legal status, can now be a third-degree felony, which, when they came out with that, they were it was supposedly designed to stop the flow of migration, what's going on with the southern border right now with that. But it was, the way it was written it was kind of broad, and it could apply to a wide range of activities, if daily activities. It could cover, it could impact, people in Florida and businesses who, are transportation services or housing services. That's a possibility. Churches and faith groups that are transporting individuals who they should know don't have status, or, and you mentioned that it could make family and friends, liable for just everyday occurrences. If you're driving and going to work, driving someone to work, going to the doctor's, grocery shopping. So it has some broad implications that we have to worry about. The question we get the most, right, is I have DACA. We have a client who has DACA, and they have plans already, and we've gotten numerous emails and calls about this. And then they ask us, well, can I travel to Florida? Can I travel? Maybe should I travel? But what are your thoughts there in light of this new law?
Right. So DACA is, essentially with DACA, you have that deferred action, that ability to be in the United States, right? And if you follow the rules under the DACA program, you can count on that deferred action for protection. So this law does not, and it cannot criminalize people that have DACA status. Florida as a state does not have the power to take DACA away. And it also does not have power as a state to arrest you if you are authorized to be in the United States as a DACA recipient. So if can you travel to Florida with DACA status? Yeah, you should be able to. With regards to the transport provision that we just mentioned, there's mixed status families. So if you're a DACA holder, but perhaps you have a family member without status, you may want to, change up those travel plans in regards to who's driving, how many cars, take separate vehicles. But as far as just yourself having DACA status, you should be allowed to be present in that state.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Florida, Texas, Arizona, they don't have the right to take away your work permit or say that you're illegal, or they don't have that. They're not the federal government. So that is somewhat of a concern. They think that they're maybe policing or having checkpoints, and if you're not a green card holder or if you're not a citizen, you're somehow going to get in trouble. That's not true. At DACA, you're perfectly able to live and reside and travel in DACA if you're authorized to be here in the United States. With DACA, you're authorized, and in some instances, if you're applying for a green card through let's just say a spouse, and they give you a work permit because you're trying to get your green card here, you're in authorized period of stay, as they say. So they wouldn't be able to take that away. The next question here is, can I travel to Florida with my family, with my friends, if they don't have any status? And as you mentioned, this provision is probably the most problematic because our clients are not traveling by themselves; they're traveling with others, and under the new law, if you're driving someone that you know or should have know that they don't have status and entered illegally, then you could potentially be liable. So, let's say that you're driving into Florida with a friend or a parent, a tío or tía or whatever. If you know for sure that they entered illegally sometime in the past, I would, for now, think twice, maybe reconsider travel, at least for now, to see if it clears, if the storm clouds clear up. At least not travel in the same vehicle. I mean, travel in separate vehicles, so you're not transporting a person. That's one thing, right? You can't, if you're driving solo and they're over there, I mean, you're not transporting somebody, I don't think. But this whole thing, really, it's ridiculous because, first of all, do we really know if, how our family members, or I guess we do, right? If our families or friends entered.
Yeah, but it's also,
some of us might know.
It's a legal question. And even as attorneys, as immigration attorneys, it's sometimes a gray area. Like I've had clients that tell me, I entered unlawfully. And I'm like, okay, let's talk this through. How did you enter? What happened? And then it turns out that we can argue they didn't enter unlawfully.
It's a legal question, right?
Yeah, we have clients that did present themselves at the border and they believe they can argue that they entered lawfully, but it turns out they can't. So it is a legal question that even for sometimes as immigration attorneys, it becomes a gray area. So how should somebody that is not an immigration attorney be able to make that determination? You said, it's very broadly written.
Yeah. Right. And some of us might know, all right, maybe our parents, told us about how they entered, and especially that's a question on one of the forms when you apply for DACA, right? It's like how you entered, and most of you don't remember how you entered, and so you have to ask your mom or your dad, and maybe that's the way you knew, right? But there are instances where, we don't know. I couldn't tell my tíos how they entered. Just by the way they act or the way they conduct themselves, or am I going to ask them? That's kind of weird, right? That's not something we ask our tíos or tías at a barbecue. We don't ask them like, hey, tío, how did you enter illegally? And did you enter with the status, or, unless your tío gets drunk and spills the beans and it kind of presents a dilemma or anything, but it's kind of ridiculous now. And so it puts us in a position, I think, that, are we now expected to ask people, who are traveling with us about their immigration history? That kind of turns us into immigration officers in a sense. But to be on the safe side, you might have to. At least have valid IDs on them. So that brings us next to this other question that we got, is what you should do if you're pulled over by police.
Right.
Florida.
I always tell my clients, a calm client is the best client. So definitely, if you are in the presence of an officer, it's always best to take a deep breath if you need to, and remember your rights. and everybody that's in the United States, whether they have status or not, regardless of how they entered, they have rights, the same rights as a U.S. citizen, to due process. So just, provide the officer essentially needs to know who you are, and your name is enough for them to identify you. So provide the officer with a valid ID and proof of insurance, and only state your name. So that should be enough information for you to be identified, and exercise your right to not speak until you have an attorney. So you have the right to counsel, you have the right to remain silent, and they can't force you to speak.
Yeah, and it's something that you should know. I mean, you're stopped in Florida, and for most states, if you're stopped here in Texas as well, I mean, you have to give the officer your information regarding your driver's license, your name and insurance, proof of vehicle registration. But beyond that, if the officer asks about your immigration status or the status of the passengers there, the best thing to do is not talk. Why? Because anything you tell the officer can be used against you in court. So, politely just tell the officer, look, I don't want to say anything without speaking with my lawyer first. And so that is a very important thing to know. The other thing is, and I had this question. So if you do that people, when they have run-ins with police, we want to be respectful, right? And we're always thinking, man, I don't want to get in trouble, right? But the reality is that you do have rights, and you have the right to exercise them. And these are the rights that are shared by American citizens. You have the same rights as anyone else in terms of when you are stopped by the police. So it's important you're going to get nervous and whatnot, but it's important to exercise that. And you said you could be polite and respectful about it. But some worry about, well, is that going to affect me, my DACA? Are they going to take my DACA away? First of all, the police officer can't, say, I'm going to take your DACA permit, whatever, away, and you're no longer authorized to be here. They can't do that. And this, by you exercising your right, by you saying, hey, I don't want you to search my car, or I'm not going to answer that question about immigration status. By you exercising your constitutional right, you cannot get in trouble for that. They cannot take your DACA away or any immigration status away simply because you are exercising a right that you have under the Constitution. Doesn't matter if you're a U.S. citizen, a foreign national, you have that right. So it's important to know.
Yeah, it doesn't imply that you've done anything wrong if you're exercising your right to remain silent. Or I believe somebody also asked the question, like, so what if I'm in a vehicle, I'm exercising my right to remain silent, but then somebody else, clarifies that they have status? Is that implying that I don't? And, not necessarily, your silence doesn't prove anything. It's just you're securing your right to be able to speak with an attorney who will be able to advise you on, any repercussions this may have on your status in the United States.
And you could exercise your silence like at, pretty much at any point. So I would think that when you get pulled over, some people are going to get nervous and say, if they're asked by the officer, hey, do you have status, or do you know that guy that's riding with you has status? Our natural response is sometimes, no, well, I don't know. If you say something, you're blurred out. And at that point, you can say, well, look, I don't know, but I don't want to answer that question right now. I don't, I want to speak with a lawyer who can advise me of my rights, because reality is, like you mentioned, legal status, it's a very complicated thing to determine a person's legal status. What we know, or what our clients may think of legal status, is maybe different in the courts. We've seen that. What is the definition of that? So how can we expect that a person who's not trained in law make that determination? It's best to just not say anything.
Right.
Like, I don't want to talk about it, and it's too complicated for me. And so that's a very important thing to consider, and maybe run it by your head. I think that sometimes we are caught off guard, but if we practice it, like just like everything, practice. Why not practice in your head what you're going to say?
Mm-hmm.
And later on, we have an app that my law partner and I created that you can use, and you can look at it at any point and just look at what your rights are, review what your rights are before you travel. So we do have another question with respect to now that you are driving, right? And, and maybe it was the same one. So it was, let's see here. No, it was pretty much the same one, but it was, we're talking about arrested or detained, and this one is stopped, but it's the same thing. If a person is stopped, in Florida, you mentioned stay calm, be respectful. That's a very good thing. The other thing too, if you're pulled over, is don't lie about your status, or don't give any fake green cards out. You're gonna get in trouble for that.
Right.
Keep everything silent. You have the right to, if they are saying, look, can we search your car? Can we search your wallet? Can we search your belongings? They're looking around. Here's the flashlight. You can say no. You can say that you're not giving them the right to search your car or your vehicle or whatever. They can only do so. They can only check if they have, if it's a matter of safety. I mean, if you're packing heat and they see a gun or they see drugs, whatever, they can, go further with their search, or they have it's called probable cause, or if you give them consent, which is a common way that things are searched in a car by a police officer. It's if the person simply gives them consent and says, yeah, okay. So you got to be clear. You got to be clear and say, I am not giving you consent. And you might want to record that too. You might want to record that encounter, and that you were, where you're clear and that you're exercising your rights. If you're over 18, you have to carry your papers. If you're an immigrant, if you have your green card, you have to have your green card at all time, and you have to present it. That's something that you have to do. So don't forget, if you're a legal permanent resident, you're traveling, don't forget to take your green card.
Right. It's important, like you mentioned, to have all your lawful documents on you, but you also said don't provide a fake green card. It's reminding me of a past case I read about where the person, something happened, they had to be arrested. So, their person had to be searched, and on their person, they had a fake green card. So, it's important to carry your lawful documents, but equally important to not carry fake documents on you to where they can find them in your possession.
Yeah. I mentioned that we created an app, and this app we created when there were a lot of raids here in Texas, and people were just giving information freely to the officer or to the ICE agent. They didn't know their rights. They were scared. And so we have an app here that you can download. You can give us your basic information, and then download it on your Play Store or Apple, and it will give you information on what your rights are. In certain scenarios, if you're stopped, like have we been talking, if you've been stopped, what are your rights then? If they come searching or they come knocking at your door, maybe at work, what are your rights then? What you should do? And it's important to have that. There's an emergency red button that is on the app, and that's the thing that glares up. It shows you that, look, there's a red button, and if you're pulled over, you can press the red button. And what that does, you can designate contacts. So let's just say that, look, I want my mom or my parents or my spouse to know that I'm safe if something happens. then you could press that red button, and that button will send an alert over a text over to your designated contact, and they would know that something's up, that there's an encounter. And it also records. So this puts it up in the cloud. So if you have an attorney later, you want to share that information, you can get an audio recording of it, and maybe we can make that available as well. So just check it out. There's also, in addition to Know Your Rights, there's also information about the latest immigration news. So you'll get notifications if there's something very important that's happening regarding immigration or your status, something that is very vital. And if they pass immigration reform, if they pass Dreamer legislation, this is something that we're going to notify you on, and you can receive that alert on your app. So it's a pretty cool thing. Given that, Miriam, anything else to say about the app?
I think the app's pretty awesome. I think now it's a good time to download it and review the section about your rights. It's pretty user friendly. So like you said, it's good for people to rehearse it, even like me with, just in case of a traffic citation. Yeah, it's a very, very helpful app to download.
Yeah. And if you have any questions about that, you can contact us, and the information is on the description box. Final thoughts, any final tips, Miriam? I know that we're waiting for this. It hasn't happened yet, but we have been hearing a lot of stories. We talked about some of the news stories about this, about the impact that this
on
new law is
TikTok.
going to have.
All the TikTok videos.
TikTok videos, okay.
With the food spoiling on the fields.
Crazy,
because there's not enough workers. It's really sad. But yeah, just, there's so many other fun activities that you all can, find in states that are not Florida, because, those phone calls and emails I'm getting from people that are canceling their vacations that they had been looking forward to, tremendously sad. Make sure your identifications are all updated. So if you do have lawful status, make sure you have, your green card renewed, and your DACA is up to date, your EAD is up to date, in case you are planning to make this travel on down to Florida. But yeah, and you download the app and read the section about your rights, because it's very, very helpful. Yeah.
Speaking of identification cards, one of the other things, I don't know if we mentioned it, but it was about the, if you're using an out-of-state identification card as a way to apply for something in Florida or for whatever purpose, right? They're not going to respect that out of state if the way you got it, if you got it from a state that doesn't require you to show that you have legal status. Like here in Texas, we know that they're very strict, right? So you can use your Texas driver if it's valid, if it's not expired, you can take that with you, and they should be valid. It's a valid ID, right?
Man, I'm looking forward to all the lawsuits, because it's bringing me back to law school with the interstate commerce.
Interstate, yeah. Because there's a bunch of other states with New Mexico, California, other states that don't require it, and so that's something to think about as well when you're preparing your trip. As we mentioned, the new law doesn't go into effect July 1st. So I mean, some people are not worried about it because it's like June, and their trip is in June, and can they travel then? I mean, yeah. I mean, the law hasn't become effective yet.
But still be careful and follow traffic rules. Don't give them a reason to stop you.
Yeah. Right. And monitor it. We will send messages out. We will send, please like and subscribe, because we're going to be keeping you all updated about the latest. If there is any litigation, if a judge blocks it, and we've seen a lot of blocks. We're so used to judicial blocks, in immigration law, with DACA and everything else. So this could very well happen too, where it doesn't become effective because of some, but we don't know yet. We'll keep you updated. The other thing is, if if you are pulled over, and let's just say that you exercise your rights, one thing to consider is that, as I mentioned, you have the right to remain silent and not address any questioning regarding your immigration status. The same thing with you have a right to refuse search if they're just asking you, right? Can I search your car? You can say no. I mean, they're going to have some reason, good reason to do it, or unless you give them consent. But let's just say that the officer just says, well, I'll screw it, I'm just going to go ahead and search, or I'm just going to assume that your silence means that that you're guilty and you're arrested somehow. As I mentioned, this is why it's important to record, because that can be challenged. You should be respectful, don't resist. Talk to a lawyer right away once you're in custody. I'm sure your family and friends, and as I mentioned, that app has that ability to send an alert, and you can be in contact with an attorney. You contact an attorney, get in contact with you, and go over your rights there. And that activity, that action, that police action that we think was illegal, can be challenged in court. And so that is very important to preserve that evidence if we can.
Yeah, and like we've discussed in other videos, if you're not a U.S. citizen and you're being detained for a criminal reason, it's very important to remember that you need to speak with an attorney, but you need to speak with, two attorneys, an immigration attorney and a criminal defense attorney, unless you can find there's that, because there's specializations.
Yeah. Well, with that, folks, thank you for joining. Feel free to send a question. I know that a lot of us are working, and we do get questions later on when the video is published in YouTube, and we get questions there. You feel free to ask your question or make comments, and we'll be happy to address them. And again, if you like the information, please remember to click like and subscribe to our channel, and share this information with your friends and family. And if you have any questions later, just please let us know or contact us, and our contact information is in the description box. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.